Hello, good afternoon, everyone. The Once Club community and guests and friends. Lovely to see you on this very dreary Monday if you're in London, but what can you do? This is England, what can you say? So today I'm very excited to be sitting down with Rachel Koffsky, who is the VP of Handbags and Accessories Luxury at Christie's. And today essentially we're going to be talking a little bit about her journey and how one ends up at such an iconic auctioneer house, what that looks like in terms of her day-to-day, and specifically around the types of pieces and collections that she deals with regularly, and why, and what investment looks like. And before I sort of give it over to Rachel to introduce herself and give us a bit more of an in-depth insight, I'm going to apologize. There might be a slight sound tick that I have. It's nothing to worry about. I have a fire alarm that we are desperately trying to fix. I don't know why it keeps beeping. But if you've seen that episode with Phoebe from Friends, you understand the struggle. But hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've been really looking forward to sitting down with you and getting to know a little bit more about your role at Christie's. But please let us know how you what you do, how you ended up at Christie's, what that looked like. I'm sure all our viewers also are very excited too.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here. Delighted to speak with you about my story. I've been at Christie's now for 7 years and a bit. I am, as you said, an international senior specialist of handbags and accessories, and that actually is exactly what it sounds like. So my job is to meet with clients, look at their handbag collections, advise them on handbag collections, put together handbag auctions at Christie's, and then take these pieces that I've acquired from other collectors and sell them into other collections around the world. I first joined Christie's in New York in 2014. I was in the New York office at Christie's for about 3.5 years. And then I moved over to London, where we launched the handbag auctions in London. While I was in London, I was head of sales. So that means I was responsible for the auctions that we had in London. I was responsible for private selling around Europe. I was responsible for appraisals, working with other departments to make sure that their clients were taken care of from a handbag perspective. And in addition to that, I'm also an auctioneer. So I stand on the rostrum with a gavel, and I do the actual physical selling of the pieces that come through the door and onto the auction block at Christie's. So just this past week, I was the auctioneer for the wine sale at King Street in London at Christie's. So it's really an exciting place where you wear many hats and you get to meet exciting people that are interested in lots of different categories, and your colleagues are as passionate about their fields of expertise as I am about handbags. So it's definitely a place that you learn a lot, and you see a lot, and you handle a lot, and you're exposed to something different every week. So it's a marvelous place to work, and I feel very privileged to call Christie's my home, in addition to being the place that I work for quite a number of years.
A few years.
Yeah.
It sounds incredible, and it does really sound like you kind of get to have like a different day every day, which is awesome. I always think in any type of workplace. So did you kind of feel like you were leading up to working at an auction house, or kind of how did you end up in this type of role, and what were you doing before?
Absolutely. So I studied art history and maths when I was at university. Where I went to university, you call it math. Here you call it math. So I studied art history and maths. I had a lot of internships at museums. So when I was in college over the summers, I would work at the Metropolitan Museum. I worked a bit at the Walters Art Museum in Baltimore, which is where I went to school. I studied abroad, and I worked in a museum there. And so when I was approaching graduation, I wanted to have an experience that was different than a museum experience. I always loved handbags. It was something that I was always really passionate about from a personal standpoint, but I didn't expect that it was a career. I just so happened to have found myself in this category. Immediately became very passionate about the property, passionate about the collectors. I loved working with female collectors, which is something that's very unique to the handbag department at Christie's. Of course, there's female collectors in every category, but handbags happens to be the category with the highest percentage of female collectors. So working with women was something that was really important to me, going into their homes, talking about what stage of life they were at, how their bag reflected what they were doing, how they purchased pieces to celebrate important instances in their life, or perhaps it was a promotion or a new baby. These were all fascinating moments for me, and really solidified how passionate I am about handbags. And because of that passion, I really set myself apart as being one of the top experts in the world in this department. So based on that, Christie's has had many successes over the past couple of years because of the Christie's team here, and how passionate we are about this functional object that happens to also be really valuable, important, sentimental, special, and frequently rare and valuable.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that having to sometimes explain or to kind of give insight into kind of, the power of a handbag, and then to kind of really look into how that can become, how would you say, whether it's an investment, but like you said, it can have like these huge milestones within your life. It can be it can be pillars in terms of certain stages. And then the fact that you can sort of create something, it's all, going back to your past with working in museums, it is really something that you can sort of wear but really appreciate, in that sense of craftsmanship, artisanal, etc. So to the neophytes and to the ones who are maybe a little bit more skeptical, can you give us an idea or a little bit more in-depth insight into what makes something, a luxury handbag, a potential investment, or something that can be sort of essentially, that is appraised and used for private sales and auctions, etc.?
Absolutely. So the interesting thing about Christie's is we're not making anything. We're really a marketplace where we connect buyers and sellers, and the price that something sells for is the market price. So when something is valuable and expensive, it's because there's a high demand for it. It's something there's fewer of them on the market than there is demand for it. So the pieces that we're selling, that we see come up for auction and sell for astronomically high prices, are pieces that are very, very unique, very, very rare, very unusual. Perhaps they were created 25 years ago and there's only a few of them left in this condition, or it's an item that's created in very, very limited quantities, and collectors will search for 10 years to find this exact piece. So it really is a matter of economics, like any other valuable commodity. So what I do is I work with clients and I look at market trends, and I say, this is where the market is going. This is what a lot of my collectors are looking for. And alternatively, a lot of people are selling this item right now, and therefore the value is affected this way. So it's really, a lot of it is aesthetic and about, talking to clients and hearing what their tastes are. And the other part of it is very much a reaction to the market, and just really having your finger on the pulse of what collectors are looking for.
Right. So you find, so are you mostly being approached by, say, collectors, or women who want to have an idea of what their collection looks like, and what they look, or are you sort of reaching out to people or women who you think might have incredible collections, or okay, I can't, forgive me.
It's a lot of both. So at Christie's, we're the #1 auction house for handbags. We've been the market leader for 7 years in a row. So collectors that have a lot of handbags and they know that their handbags are valuable know that Christie's is the first place that they're going to call if they're looking for an appraisal, or they're looking to sell one piece. Perhaps they're trying to make room in their collection for something else. So very frequently we have collectors coming to us. Also at Christie's, we have over 30 collecting categories. So we have top collectors in the fields of art, design, jewelry, wine. And so oftentimes, if you love collecting and you love one luxury object, you frequently love more than one. And so we have a lot of collectors at Christie's that are cross-category collectors. So perhaps they've always loved old master drawings, and they come in over the holiday season and we have an amazing handbag auction. They become educated about the value of handbags. They they meet with a specialist, and before you know it, they've also been bitten by the collecting bug when it comes to the handbag department as well. And then we also do outreach. So we have marketing campaigns, social media. Basically, it's very reciprocal, and very frequently collectors will come in saying, I'm only a buyer or I'm only a seller. And before you know it, they're transacting on the other side as well.
Okay. They like to do both. I like that.
Absolutely, they do.
I love it. So how does it sort of work within sort of, I don't say the auction world, but how do you determine what's going to be an auction, what pieces go into that auction, how often do you do those?
Absolutely. So we carefully curate our auction so that each piece really stands on its own. We have an auction happening right now, and each piece is really a unique individual object that appeals to a different buyer. So they're absolutely expertly curated based on what I know to be the most desirable pieces, what I know that my collectors will really get excited about, what will resonate with the market, with what will bring in new collectors. And then we only have sales twice per year in each region. So this is the only sale that we have in the first half of the year in London. The next sale will not be for a number of months. And for that reason, there's a lot of excitement and buzz around these auctions. So we have collectors who don't know the next time that they're going to see such a special, unique piece. And that's really what compels them to bid, and what gets these really high prices is because they come on the market so infrequently that it's really an exciting occasion.
Cool. And how many pieces or how many lots do you tend to have per?
So this auction has about 150 handbags. It also has 150 pieces of jewelry, and then 4 pieces of custom clothing from the fashion brand Marni, runway pieces from Marni that were created last year during the pandemic. So there's really something for everyone in this sale. We have bids starting at 200 pounds and going all the way to 100,000 pounds. So there's a huge variety of entry points for collectors. And I think there's a misconception that if you're coming into Christie's, you have to spend $1 million, and that's really not the case.
Yeah.
We have lots of pieces that are under 1,000 pounds that are actually a fraction of what they cost on the primary market.
Oh,
primary market meaning retail price.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't know that. I would always assume, like, as you said, that most pieces are going for not way above, but above retail in most cases.
There's definitely times when both have happened. The primary market and the secondary market operate on 2 different spheres. So the primary market is the price that it is when you walk into a fashion boutique. The price in the secondary market is what will clients spend for this object, whether it's 1 year old, 5 years old, or 50 years old.
Right. And I suppose also what comes down to that is the value that the buyer essentially puts onto that piece, right? Because sometimes it could be, if it's really a love piece and it's something that they love, like you said, they've been looking for it for X amount of years, or they really wanted it, and they just found out, I suppose they put the value on it that they are going to sort of go at and all cost to acquire that piece. So it could really drive a piece, and I suppose that sets a trend maybe for say if you get a similar item the next time or not.
Yeah, absolutely. What's great about auctions is when you're buying something at auction, you know that somebody is bidding 1 increment below you. So you know that you're getting a very fair price for this piece. Whereas there's frequently times when you can go into another venue, and if there's a price tag, you don't really know what the market is like. Whereas an auction, you can look around the room, you see who's putting their paddle up. If you're looking at an online sale, it'll say 12 other bidders. So you have this sense that what you're willing to pay, someone else is just about willing to pay that as well. So there's a reason why people love auctions, and Christie's is over 250 years old, and we've been selling pieces like this for quite a long time, because it really provides a lot of context for clients when they're purchasing these pieces.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say that obviously you sort of are appraising pieces, what is the bottom line criteria essentially to kind of accept a piece, and then to kind of appropriate that type of value before going to auction? What are you guys specifically looking at from a professional point of view?
So I would say that there are 5 qualities that I look for when I'm appraising. The first, most important, is the brand. The market is really brand driven. So items without a brand, we don't sell at Christie's. The second would be like the model. So is it a classic and iconic model that has been made by this brand for a long time that's going to stand the test of time? Is it a classic shape? The material, what is this piece made out of? And then of course there's the condition. So something in beautiful condition with very few issues is going to be much more valuable than something that has condition issues. And then there's the rarity. Are there many of them on the market, or are there very few on the market? Is this something that is typical, or is it something that's very unique and rare? So these are really the qualities that go into an auction estimate and evaluation.
Sure, absolutely. And I suppose specifically, I mean, I would say my personal experience in terms of when I've seen the most buzz, especially when it comes to say Christie's or auctions in general, is Hermes. And I would just love to get, your point of view in terms of, why do you think Hermes is such a covetable brand in the sort of retail space, but also, of course, in this in the secondary space as well. And from an auction point of view, I tend to see that, again, when I've looked at sort of very high value pieces, it does usually mean it's an Hermes, Birkin, or Kelly.
Yeah. So the reason that Hermes is the leader in the secondary market for handbags has a lot to do with the way that Hermes was founded. So Hermes was founded in the 1837 as a harness workshop, and then began making saddles. And so the pieces that Hermes makes are made in the same way that Hermes makes these saddles. So they're extremely, extremely durable. They're made of the highest quality materials. They're made by hand, and they've been consistently made this way for the past 100 years. And the Kelly was designed in the 1930s. It was renamed for Grace Kelly in the 1970s. The Birkin was designed in the 1980s. So we have decades of pieces of property that are very high quality, that survive to this day because of the way that they were created. So that really has a lot to do with why they're so collectible and desirable. They have this long history of being special and being important. Whereas many other brands that are making beautiful bags and have made beautiful bags for decades have had periods of inconsistent construction, or they had different designers, whereas Hermes has been extremely consistent over the past 100 years.
Absolutely. And I mean, it continues to, I moved from a sort of personal shopping space where we could not sell Hermes into a space where we could sell everything from Hermes, with certain collectors and things like that. And just dipping into that world of Hermes kind of really opened my eyes in terms of, how handbag investments were looked upon, the seriousness of it, the acquisition is almost, voracious, I suppose, to, for lack of a better word, right?
Definitely, there are people and there are collectors, women and men, that love Hermes, and they're like students of the brand, and they love the scarf designers, and they love the perfume designers, and they love the colors. It's like being a Patek Philippe collector. Like you're voracious, and there's like no little bit of information that doesn't like completely fascinate you. So it definitely captures the attention of collectors like no other brand. So I would agree with that.
What is in your mind, is there any particular lot from Hermes that sticks out in terms of a very spectacular sale or piece that has been up for auction?
Absolutely. One of the first bags that I'll always think of is a beautiful bronze Birkin 25 that was created for Leila Manshari, who created the window displays at Hermes on Rue de Faubourg for many years. So it was part of this metallic collection, this very rare metallic collection, only created for one season. And in an auction in Paris in 2017, we had one of these pieces available for auction in just absolutely gorgeous condition. The bag was over 10 years old. The auction estimate was 8,000 to 10,000 euros, and it sold for 100,000 euros.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And do you, and for, in your experience, if a buyer or a collector is purchasing an item at such an elevated price point, is it likely that they preserve, or do they use, are they using the bag, or are they preserving the bag for, to hand down, or to just be part of their collection?
Oh, it's a very good question. I think that this collector likely used it very, very lightly and for very, very special occasions, because at the end of the day, these are handbags, and people collect them because they love them and because they want to use them. And absolutely, there are pieces that you'll use once a year or for a wedding, but they bring a lot of collectors a lot of joy, and they love to carry them. They love to bring them to work or to lunch, or even just to like look at them in their closet, to know that they have them. There's a different personality that every collector brings to their collecting habits.
Sure, absolutely. If you were to now, if you can narrow it down, are there any particular styles? And when we talk about, just to let people know if they don't know, like a Birkin 25, the 25 is referring to the size, the dimensions of that particular style. But is there a particular style and size that you find over and over again is consistently always in demand, very popular lot at all?
Right now, I would say that the Mini Kelly 20 is extremely, extremely popular. It's one of the newest bags that has come out in terms of sizes, and it's just been exceptionally popular and continues to do really well. So there's the Kelly 20 was vintage model that was discontinued, and then the 22 was released only a couple of years ago. And so these mini bags, whether they're vintage and very hard to find in beautiful condition, or newer examples, they're definitely capturing the attention of collectors of all ages.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that there's no female demographic or what have you where I have not asked or have not owned, in my experience, for my clients who don't own a 20 or 25 or 22, and yeah, they continue to be super popular as well. And they always look fantastic. You can really sort of, I see a veracity with those more so than any other size at the moment as well. Do you think you can, speaking with Hermes or other brands as well, actually, are there any other brands that kind of come close to Hermes that kind of come up time and time again?
So we sell a lot of other brands in our auctions. We have a lot of Chanel, Gucci, Fendi, Dior, a lot of Louis Vuitton. There are a lot of other brands that are very desirable and are very much in demand. However, Hermes, as we discussed, does really capture this very special part of the market where collectors are just voracious about these pieces and about the history. So there's definitely the majority of the pieces tend to be Hermes.
Okay. And do you think that you're, with all your experience, when say if a new style comes out, or maybe if there's a little bit of buzz around a particular style, are you able to kind of say that's going to be a great lot in X amount of time? Are you able to call it essentially?
It's interesting because it's fun to see what new pieces come out, but I happen to love the vintage pieces the most. So I happen to think that the incredible Sacca Malice that has the trompe l'oeil effect is going to be the most exciting piece that comes to auction, because those are the ones that you see so infrequently. It's that little gem that took you 10 years to find. So those are the ones that I get the most excited about.
Awesome. I love the vintage as well, and I think there's nothing that kind of equates that, because you do really feel like you're looking at a piece of history at the time.
Absolutely.
With craftsmanship and construction, and I have a couple of vintage bags, by no means I would say completely luxury, but they've been made, I've picked them up in the most random places, and then you realize, and I start looking at the history of that particular brand if you're lucky enough to see it, and you realize where the factories were, and you really kind of sort of can almost envision what the leather industry was like in London 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And so it does have these kind of timestamps of history you want to kind of pass on. So I get the sense of that feeling of wanting to preserve and then pay it forward almost a little bit. So in terms of your private sales with your collectors, how do you tend to work that? Is it very sporadic? Is it when maybe a particular collector or seller is ready to do that, how do you tend to manage that?
So because we only have the auctions twice per year, private sales are a way for us to connect with our clients 365 days of the year. So if there's not an auction coming up, but there's a very special occasion or there's a birthday coming up, private sales allow us to connect a buyer and a seller outside of the auction season. It's also something that's, more private. So if someone wants to sell something in a way that isn't going to, blast the results on the front page of the BBC, they want something a bit more discreet, then private sales is the way to go, because our auctions get a lot of press, a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz. They're open to the public. Our doors are open at Christie's. And so for clients that want something a little bit more bespoke, private sale is the way to go.
Okay, awesome. And anyone essentially, whether they've been with Christie's before or, in terms of their backgrounds or what have you, anyone can sort of essentially work with Christie's? Is that
Oh,
correct?
absolutely. Christie's is always free. We have amazing exhibitions. Handbags is just the beginning. It's just the tip of the iceberg. We have incredible art from every single century, design, furniture, incredible jewelry, wine, watches. So absolutely, we're open to the public, and there's a specialist or more in every department that's absolutely willing to share their expertise with anyone that has any questions.
Awesome. So you're really able to kind of be there to kind of guide them through the process, give them the kind of information and that the support, if you will. If this is the first time you're working with Christie's, I suppose having a specialist intel is exactly what you need.
Oh, absolutely. I advise my clients all the time on absolutely everything from what to buy and what to sell, all the way to how, what tissue paper should I put in my bag? I'll answer any question that is handbag related or not handbag related. If it's jewelry related, I'm happy to give my opinion as well.
Awesome. No, I think that's great. I think, the more, and I think it kind of leads into another reason why we were so excited to sit down with you in terms of the parallels with, being a personal shopper, a personal stylist. You are essentially that kind of authority to a client, a collector, a buyer, in terms of these particular things. And they do ask you, like you said, it's inclusive of, above all, in terms of what they might be asking you, what they might need insight for it, and it does kind of, it has a wide range, I'm sure, in your experience, in terms of the things that, like you said, that you're being asked about. But do you find that you're working with a lot of personal shoppers, with, around private sales and collectibles, etc.?
Absolutely, from time to time, we absolutely do. We work with a huge variety of clients, private clients, personal shoppers, every type of client. We're absolutely happy to help and find a way to work within what their questions are, what their specific goals are.
Absolutely. And do you find it differs a lot between, like, say, a specific client and a personal shopper, or do you find that it's one and the same, essentially?
Well, often because personal shoppers work for private clients, they're more similar than different, as opposed to an institution or a museum where they have a very different end goal than the personal shopper or a private client.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So obviously we're sort of, hopefully, Boris, give us some good news, coming into an easing of the restrictions and things like that. How was last year for you guys in the pandemic? Did you have to change a lot? I saw that you guys already had an app, which I thought was super interesting. When I think of auctions, I don't think of apps, which just goes to show you guys are all clearly on the pulse. But how was it, in terms of just, working through a pandemic and what that looked like?
Well, it's a very transformative year for the auction industry. So prior to the pandemic, we had live auctions in the handbag department in London, which is basically what you think of when you see an auction in a movie or on TV. It's a big room with someone standing at the front banging a gavel, and each lot comes up. There's its picture on the screen. Everybody raises up their hand, calls their clients, and bids live in the room. And so when the pandemic hit, of course, we couldn't continue doing business like that. We couldn't all congregate in one room. And so many of our auctions moved online. And in fact, the first handbag auction that we had in London online was in June of 2020. We put it together during the pandemic. I was home in Connecticut, and it sold 100% of the handbags. So it was an incredible, fascinating, shattering result. And it really went to show that there was an appetite there for these pieces, that clients were interested in investing in luxury pieces. They were home, they wanted entertainment, they were looking for something fun and joyful, and they really turned to auctions and to handbags in particular. And so since then we've had this is now our third online handbag auction that's taking place right now, and our clients have really embraced this medium. Whereas of course, 2 years ago, if you had asked me, will all of my clients be bidding online, I would have said absolutely not. They need the catalog, they need me to walk them through the exhibition, we have to do it together. But they've just become very, very self-reliant, and they know how to bid, they know how to look up a condition report, they know how to download the images, and they know that if they want a video in sunlight, that I'll send it to them on WhatsApp. So there's definitely been a lot of changes that have transformed not only the handbag department, but the entire auction industry, because we're seeing a lot of auctions moving online as well.
And I think it's great, and I think being able to do both obviously makes sense, because I can imagine that there is a certain excitement, a certain sense of occasion, if you will. Not that I've been to an auction, but that's how it feels. Like
you should come to an auction.
I would love to come, honestly, because
Yeah.
I feel like that's the kind of thing, I mean, me personally, I would get a kick out of, because it always feels it's very exciting. It feels almost a bit competitive, and
It is. It's all of those things. Yeah, you should have come last week.
I know I should have. Next time I would definitely be there. And so yeah, but to see I mean, I'm sure there was, difficulties or what have you, but but to kind of see it do so well and to be so successful online must be super exciting, and it kind of possibly gives you so much more range in terms of how you can take it, where you want to take it, in terms of what types of sales maybe that you're able to kind of push out there. I suppose it kind of gives you more opportunity going forward to kind of see where it can go.
Yeah, it was definitely a very challenging year for everybody, and it was a challenging year professionally, and it was really a challenge to put together the sale during a lockdown. And there was a lot of my clients were concerned. They didn't know what the market was going to be like. They didn't want to be vulnerable and selling during a downtime in the market. And so it took a lot of trust that we knew that there was going to be an appetite for these pieces, that there was still a very strong desire for these pieces, that clients were looking for alternative investments, and that risk paid off for those clients. And we're going to continue to give our clients the best advice and offer them the best venues to sell their pieces based on what we hear from our prospective buyers.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned earlier about kind of like using WhatsApp to kind of do the video in the sunlight to kind of capture the angles, and it's something that working at a couple of places before where we kind of become very attuned to that, and similarly with doing Hermes as well, that's such a huge important part of it. You cannot see what's the closest way of being able to give you that in real life experience, I suppose. And it's funny that now like WhatsApp is such a great medium for that.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's different in every market. I'll be in Hong Kong and it's WeChat. You'll be in the US and it's email or texting or FaceTime. Here in London, it's WhatsApp. And so you definitely have to be flexible, and you have to go where your clients are. So if your clients are not on WhatsApp, then WhatsApp probably isn't the right venue. But here in London, it's absolutely where clients want to get the information. It's where they want to get the pictures, and it's how you reach them.
Yeah, and it's just the level of trust, I think, like you said, that you're building with your clients to be able to say, I'm going to show you this on WhatsApp, and I'm
Yes.
and you're also handling pieces that are of very high value. So to then kind of feel like you're sending this on a WhatsApp, it's about trust, and it's just a whole different. It is from 5 to 10 years ago. It's such a different landscape of like, yes, let me just send you this piece, this piece worth X amount on WhatsApp, and you'll love it. And it's such a when I first started at Net-a-Porter, it was like we do an email, then we do a phone call, then you send up some follow, it was a process, and now you can have all the video, have it ready, send it over.
Absolutely. You're right. There was definitely a time when when you'd think it's 10,000 pounds. We have to show them. No one will buy something for 10,000 pounds without seeing it in person, without having a cup of tea or a glass of champagne, which I love to do, you know. But if I say to a client, this bag came in and it's perfect for you, and you've been waiting for this bag for 5 years, it's X, and they're like, great, I'll take it. You're like, oh, okay. Then you can come in for champagne after. So yeah.
Cool. I love it. So we're just at the question portion. So if any of our viewers would like to send in a question about what we've talked about, or maybe something we haven't talked about, now is your time to add that. But I have a couple of questions from members who have submitted these previously. So one was asking about going back to Hermes and talking about, you know, exotic skins, if you will, when it comes to Hermes, and why do they seem to be that much higher, or you know, how do you place a value on those particular pieces?
Well, so like anything, it's really about the supply and the demand. And so if there's a demand for something, it's very expensive and very valuable. So that's really, you know, what it comes down to. And of course, when we sell exotic pieces, we are very, very careful to follow absolutely every CITES regulation that there is. So we're extremely sensitive to that.
I know CITES are hard. I did.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And do you find, you know, because I think, you know, exotics and fur in general always continue to be controversial, but have you found that attitudes towards have changed or modified, or is it a really particular client that you tend to find that being towed along with? You know, what are your thoughts?
I like every collector has a very specific taste and very specific personality, and I work with each collector to identify those and make sure that I'm offering them pieces that they really love. So like some collectors love a certain color and we only look at that color, and some collectors won't go anywhere near another color. And so it's like that for absolutely every element of a bag or a brand or a designer or material.
Okay, cool. And then we have another question, another Hermes question, and I don't know, I actually saw this last week. What are your thoughts on, have you seen the crystal Rinkoff Hermes bag everyone was talking about from
what is it?
So I think, so it's Crystal Rinkoff, who is a Real Housewives of
Bel-Air. Oh yes, I heard all about this. Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's, yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible bag and it's super cute. It's a Faubourg Birkin for anyone who hasn't seen it. And we actually sold a similar piece in Hong Kong recently for 2 million Hong Kong dollars. So it's also a very valuable piece.
Absolutely. Because I think they said, you know, I will admit it, I indulge in Real Housewives. So I saw it and they said it was, I think she said it retailed at, or Kyle said it retailed at $95,000. So what is it about that particular style that is creating that price point, and then clearly the demand for that as well?
It's a lot of things. First of all, it's extremely rare. So
right.
Like we've said a few times, if something is very, very rare and you can't get it, it becomes extremely valuable. So this is something that's super rare that clients can't get. It's something that Hermes has never made before. It's a Birkin that looks like the front of the Faubourg boutique in Paris, which is an iconic, like the place to be if you're an Hermes collector. Like that is where you go. That is like the first stop you make when you go to Paris. So it's like this very, very special site. And then it's crafted of very precious, rare materials. It's a mastery of craftsmanship, and it's tiny. So it's super, super cute. So it's really like the perfect storm of everything that a collector could possibly want. And therefore it's super, super valuable.
I love that. I like the perfect storm. I like that. I like how
it is. It's the house in the middle of a perfect storm, literally.
Wonderful. So this is a great question. You must have an incredible personal handbag collection. What is your favorite?
So I've loved handbags ever since I was like 5 years old. Probably I would take my mom's bags when I was 5, and my grandmother gave my mom a lot of bags, and there were always these like precious things that were important because they were like family heirlooms. And so I have some bags that were from my grandmother that I just absolutely cherish. And even though I have beautiful bags that I've bought for myself as a professional woman, when I traveling and all around the world, the pieces that I have that have these special memories are the ones that are the most favorite.
Oh, that's lovely. Another question here we have from a member, sorry, it was what's your favorite item that you've sold?
So my favorite item that I've sold, I sold an incredible clutch by Chanel that was from the 1997 runway. It was like if you can close your eyes and imagine a Chanel clutch, it looked like that, except it was about 3.5 feet long. It was as long as like the longest baguette you've ever seen. Wow. And it was a runway clutch, and I just was completely obsessed with this clutch. It was amazing, and it sold for 4,000 pounds, which isn't 2 million Hong Kong dollars, but it was a very, very special piece. And if I could have a piece of my collection, that to me is what really, really stands out as something special that I've sold.
Awesome. So we have a couple more questions. What's your favorite part about hosting an auction, or being, I suppose they're saying, you know, being an auctioneer? What's your favorite?
Being an auctioneer? It's a good question. No one's ever asked me that before. My favorite part of being an auctioneer, I like talking to my clients through the camera. Like I like standing up there and being like, come on, you can do one more. Like it's fun, it's thrilling, and it feels like you're really connecting with them, even though you can't see them. You're like, come on, Singapore, you got this. One more might do it. It's really thrilling, and you're doing it as it's happening. Like there's no part of it that you can do over. It's happening live, and that is really thrilling.
I like it because it almost comes across like it feels sporty, like it's like a sport, you know. You're like, you can do it, let's go.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, just one more. And sometimes it works. Yeah, no, it usually works.
That's awesome. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. So is there anything exciting that you've got next coming up soon that we should be definitely tuned into? We'd love to know.
Yeah, so we have this sale that's actually closing on Wednesday. So I encourage you to go to christies.com/luxurylondon to see all of the pieces. The Marnie outfits are totally unique. From the runway, they're starting at 200 pounds. We have handbags that are just beautiful, rare, special for sometimes a fraction of the retail price. Estimates are all, starting below 1,000 pounds, and then some incredible jewelry as well. So absolutely don't miss that. There's only about 36 hours to go in the sale. So clock is ticking.
Yeah. Pressure.
Yeah, so much pressure.
Just one last question before we go, which I thought was quite interesting. How successful would or is Goyard and Moina brands in terms of sales? What's your view?
So we haven't sold any Moinat pieces. The Goyard pieces that are very rare are the trunks from like the 1800s. Yeah, so those are the pieces that are quite desirable from Goyard, are the beautiful vintage trunks.
Oh, awesome. You know what I'm obsessed with? The idea of having my very own, the old school Louis Vuitton wardrobe trunks that they would sort of, do, and then they pack with the velvet. And I remember, I don't know if you've read the memoir, I think it's I'll Drink to That, and I think her name's Betty, and she was essentially like the oldest reigning personal shopper at Bergdorf Goodman, and she talks about when she got married, and she, because of her father and who she married were very kind of, upper echelons of society, that's what she had as her wedding present for her honeymoon.
Wow.
And they do the trunk, and then they buy the pieces for you and everything, and I was just like, that's
amazing. That's like the dream. Yeah, we have a beautiful wardrobe trunk in the auction happening right now.
Oh,
it's gorgeous. It's not vintage, it's a newer piece, but it's like magnificent. I think the current bid is like 7,000 pounds, but don't quote me on that. It might have fluctuated a bit since
after this, who knows?
Yeah. So it's an online sale, so you can see the bids as they happen. So it's not like a live auction where you have to wait until the day of to know what it's going to sell for. You can track it as the sale is open, as people place their bids. You'll notified of other bidders. So it's interactive.
Perfect. I love that. Well, that's all we have time for, sadly, but I would love to just really extend my gratitude again for everything you shared with us today. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking auctions. I'm very now looking forward to my first live auction. So this will be like I'll continue the journey. But yeah, I just want to say thank you so much again. It's been fantastic talking with you and learning a lot about Christie's and your career, of course. And
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to welcoming you in person.
Oh.
And I will get you a paddle, but be careful. It's dangerous.
I love it. Thank you so much. And some of our members already
you.
coming back and saying it's been such a great event. Thank you so much, Rachel. So hopefully I'll see you soon and have a really great week.
You too. Thank you. Thanks to everyone for joining.